Have you seen a picture of a teacher holding a paddle over a student's hands for punishment? If you haven't, then you can just imagine the teacher standing over the student, tall, with a dark expression of anger on their face, looking down at the small student's hand, while the student flinches back in fear. This is a form of corporal punishment that has happened in schools before. Now, corporal punishment is still legal in 46 states today, but there are 4 states that have prohibited the use of corporal punishment in their area. Other forms of corporal punishment that are used are flogging, paddling, and spanking. If you have ever been afflicted by these forms of corporal punishment, then you have been affected by corporal punishment. In this speech, I will persuade you not to use corporal punishment on children by discussing the mental problems associated with precipitants of corporal punishment. Now, I have researched every one of these sources and made sure that they are reliable. Also, every author I have researched, I made sure that they had the appropriate background to be knowledgeable about this situation, so they understand what corporal punishment does to the child's mind. Now, I ask you to pay attention to this speech so that you will understand what people go through when they have been affected by corporal punishment, and so you understand what your children would go through if you affected them with corporal punishment. Now, it's time to get into the details about the effect of corporal punishment on the brain. Our first step is aggression. When some sources say that corporal punishment does not cause aggression in children, but this source does. Corporal Punishment Overview by Courtney Farwell says that spanking was linked to aggression and mental health problems. This was found out by Elizabeth Gosipher, who is a doctor on mental health problems. She found this by doing experiments and by researching her own data. Now, when children are affected by corporal punishment, they do become aggressive. They don't understand what is happening to them, and they figure that the authority figure is always right. So they decide to copy what the authority figure is doing. Now, this can happen for many generations. So it's kind of like when the parent pulls out the belt and whips their child, then the child doesn't understand, and so he takes it to his next children, and he spanks his children, and it goes on and on and on. They just don't understand that it's bad, and so they do it anyways. So aggression is not the only form that happens. It's not the only form of mental health problems that happen with corporal punishment. There's also low self-esteem. Now, there are some sources that do say that corporal punishment does not cause lower self-esteem, but this source says that it does. In the article, The Negative Impact of Corporal Punishment by Annie Stokely, it says, corporal punishment can lower self-esteem and cause feelings of helplessness and anxiety. Now, with this, when children are beaten, they start feeling helpless and anxious. They don't understand that when someone comes up to them fast, they think that that person is going to inflict the punishment upon them. So they flinch away, and they're always waiting for that moment that the belt is going to strike at them. They don't feel like anybody will help them, because cops, when they are called to come and sneak out corporal punishment, they have to look for visible wounds. But with mental problems, it's very hard to figure out if they actually are having corporal punishment inflicted upon them, because there is no physical evidence. Now, because they have lower self-esteem, they can become antisocial. There are sources that do say that corporal punishment doesn't make them antisocial, it just makes people obedient. But in the source, A Good Beating Never Hurt Anyone, The Punishment and Abuse of Children in 20th Century Ireland by Maria J. Enqui, says, counteracting the bad influences and antisocial behavior that children acquire in their homes and neighborhoods by corporal punishment. Now, this is basically saying that the child can't trust anyone. They don't understand that it's just their parents that they can't trust, because when they look at everybody else, they think that they're going to punish them too. So they stop talking to people. And also, the parent could also threaten them with more corporal punishment if they talk to other people. So they have no idea who to turn to, because who's going to believe them? So this covers the effects of corporal punishment that happens in the brain. But we have one more thing to cover. There is another answer to corporal punishment. Corporal punishment is not the only answer to making a child obedient. And point, corporal punishment has no place in the United States. By Beverly Bullarvo, it says effective alternatives to corporal punishment. So there are effective corporal punishment alternatives. So why do we even have them? Well, a lot of people do have a hard time letting go of old traditions. So they hold on to the threat of corporal punishment because that is what they have been taught from generation to generation. But there are other ways to make the child obedient and not to do the bad thing again. You can put them on timeout, or you can take away their cell phone or their TV. It might not be as effective as the threat of pain, but it will help the child later on in life. So now that you know that corporal punishment is not the most effective solution, we can bring this to a close. In conclusion, I would like to thank you for listening to me and about this pressing issue that involves most of us. Today we talked about the problems that corporal punishment affects on the child's mental health, like the aggression, the low self-esteem, and the anti-socialism. Also, you know that corporal punishment is not the only answer. So now that you have all the facts, the question is, are you going to use corporal punishment on your children? This is for you to decide. Thank you for watching.